Good morning. It is time to talk about the list of things I want to do with the T26 to tune it up. First is it has quite a bit of toe out on the steering here. You can see I used a straight line to trace the direction that the wheels are pointed when it's ostensibly pointed straight ahead. And I have my caliper here. Let's see if I can. I guess I should have practiced this before I turned on the camera, right? Anyhow, we measure across the back of the tires and hit 0. Then we can put it between the front tires and measure out, and it's 5 millimeters, or 2/10 of an inch, or 27/128. What is that? 26 is 1364, which is in 12/32, 6/16, 3/8. Yeah, so over a 1/4 inch of toe out on those, and because this is a off-road vehicle, it should have toe in instead of toe out, because of the way that the steering works. If you want it to travel along a center line, you want the wheels to be pointing in so that if one of them loses traction, it goes toward the center line until the other wheel catches. Whereas now, if one of the tires loses traction, say this one that's pointed most straight ahead loses traction, then it pulls off the side of the center line until this one catches and goes straight ahead. And if this one holds tight, it just goes straight, but every time this one has more traction than that one, it's going to veer off the center line further and further. Whereas if there's toe in, so that each time one of the tires catches, it goes inside a little bit, it goes in a little bit straight, in a little bit straight, and it doesn't wander as far from the center. So I'm gonna look at the steering and try to fix that. And then the second thing on the list is the throttle linkage here. It doesn't close the carburetor completely, or as much as it could, so the engine doesn't idle as slowly as I think it could. So I'm going to have to bend this linkage right here to get that to work, because there's this stop on the side of the motor that lets you clamp a throttle setting, and there's a bumper here, so I have to adjust this linkage when the throttle lever is closed. I have to adjust this linkage so it is at the right setting. And then we had a leak on this cover here down below, so I'm just going to pop that cover off and put some sealant under it to keep the oil from leaking out. It's good that it's leaking out of there, because that means the oil is working its way from the oil reservoir up along the channels that the push rods run in, and up to the valves in there. So it's good we had that leak, because that tells us that the oil is getting where it's supposed to go. So that is the list of little modifications I have to make. I've also noticed, and I think, yeah, if I turn the steering wheel forward, there is another hole in the steering arm right here, and if the steering rod from the gearbox, steering box, gets moved to that, then it will be a lower travel on the steering wheel, because it'll be inboard toward the wheel, and this arm will get shorter, so it'll be a lower travel to turn the wheels from lock to lock. I might move that just to, because it's got the worm gear steering, and that will make it a little faster to turn the wheels. So that is the list of little things to tune up on it that I think is going to be a good set of improvements for it. Oh. Okay. So that is as far closed as the throttle body would go, and I thought the linkage was what was stopping it from going, but I forgot that these little, but then I looked at the carb and I saw this stop here. So this little carb has an idle adjustment stopper on it, and that is this. It's also the retainer for the throttle body, so if you pull that screw all the way out, this throttle body will slide sideways. But as you can see, as I loosen it, I can close that throttle more. And there. Before it was only closing that far, but now it closes almost all the way. Give that another little turn, and now it closes almost to nothing. Give it another little bit of a loosening there. There. Now it closes to nothing. So when I get that back on there, now it'll close properly. Alright, so I'm outside so I don't get a lot of crap in my living room. It's also an incredibly warm day for being January, but this is the crossbar from the steering that goes between the wheels, and because it's behind the pivot, in order to get that toe out to be a toe in, I need to be able to extend this bar to be longer. In order to do that, I am going to use some of this scrap plywood from those other puzzle kits I got and make a couple of bolt-on extensions. So It's time to cut this. Put a row of holes in it. So I'm gonna use my miter box and my razor saw to cut that. So we'll get that out of the way, and then we'll be able to trim up these and go back inside and try this out. Alright, it's time to put a knob on, or a lever on the knob for the needle adjustment. So use this torch lighter. Alright. Back with the other torch lighter. And I'm just using the tip of the flame to warm up that knob, because this is soft solder, so if you can cook it off and burn it, which I just there we go. And that pin was dipped in flux, so when I stuck it into the very hot solder there, it fluxed in, and I have to hold all this until it cools. Alright, that is on there. See, the heat did discolor this needle a bit. It was pretty shiny, but the heat discolored it. I gripped it up there with my forceps, so it should be okay. Because the forceps sucked a lot of heat out of this too. So now I can clean up that section there and get it back in the carburetor, and we'll move on. Alright, well, this little box of M2.5 screws and nuts and stuff has been real handy as far as being the right size of oddball stuff to have around. I grabbed it because most of the other engines use M2.5 bolts, and so having them around to be spare was nice, but alright, we finished up the modifications I talked about. As you can see, the toe-in, I've traced out in dotted lines there, and you can see that I got it adjusted from 5 millimeters of toe out to a couple millimeters to inside. So the wheels are 75 millimeters in diameter. That works to plus 7% toe out, converted to a minus 2.6%, which is nice. And then I was able to get the pin added on to the needle
to adjust it, and made a small modification to the throttle lever. I just bent it slightly to the side so there's space between the two levers there. And that is everything, and it should be a nice time when we get the engine out again.